Just to kind of, not that we have to like jump straight into talking seriously about all of this, but the mask thing for me is always fun because it's, I don't know, there's something like childlike to it where it's just like, it's so fun to kind of have unlimited creativity. It's the same way that like cartoons can kind of get away with more than like human people in a TV show kind of thing. Yeah. Like it just opens up people's minds in a way to accept kind of a much wider range of shit, I think.
No, I mean, I watched like cartoons until I was like in high school. And just the other day I was watching SpongeBob again. Like there's like somebody uploaded everything on Dailymotion. I think they infringed all the copyright laws, but yeah, I found it and I was watching an episode and SpongeBob was like surreal, like funny, but also surreal at times. And I'm like, wow, now I know why I love this stuff. I don't know if I can swear.
Yeah, you can definitely swear.
I know why I love this kind of cartoons when I was younger, because like this is like so genuinely funny and at the same time so like surreal, like unexpected, and exactly what you said. Like this thing actually it started as a game for me because I'm gonna mention like Camoufly was just a throwaway SoundCloud account basically, and somebody on some blog online was like who's this guy? Will we ever see the face? And I'm like, game on. I'm not gonna show this.
So it was just that like snap decision.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking like, because like first couple releases were like literally throwaway releases. The reception was nice, and around like the first couple releases on SoundCloud, so all edits, bootlegs, I had this discussion with my parents, and I was like, you know what? I think this is my thing. I was enrolled in uni in engineering at the time, and I was like, I think this is it, and I want to do this in life. And we had the big dropout talk, and me saying, this is what I want to do. I'm gonna put 100% of it in it, 100% of myself in it, and obviously, like my dad, who supports me, especially. Also my mom, of course, but my dad was like, if I don't see you like going 100% on this, first of all, I'm gonna like slap your ass and get you back to work. And if that's not enough, you gotta either find a job or go back. Like this is your chance. Like obviously he supports me, but like he was like trying to let me know, this is real life, like if you want to make it, you got to put 100% in it. But I know he's super supportive. So like,
in general, like your dad and your mom, what were they coming to the table with? Like, are they musical? Did they have any kind of artistic background?
I would say no, because like none of them works in music, but like both of them had, before like entering like the full job life, each one in their own like type of career, they both had like their even like brief, but they had their moment that was like, trying to do something artistic. My dad actually DJ'd for like a little while just in his house, but he bought like 2 turntables, the mixer, and it was like the late 80s. So consider that. He DJ'd for a little bit, and he taught me like a little bit of virtual DJ when I was like 9 or 10.
Oh, that's so cool. What kind of music was he into for DJing?
I don't know, like the disco music the like electronic disco music that it was like kind of big in the middle of the 80s. So consider that. Like I'm in Europe, so like you can imagine how much that it was like a thing.
Oh sure, yeah. I mean the new wave stuff going crazy.
I was just listening to Talk the other day, which are like this. I don't know if you know, but I think you do. Like this English new wave band, I believe. And
not a lot.
Like that I always loved that type of music too. Like I grew up like literally when I was like 5 or something. I had like, we had just one turntable at home, like 10, 20 years ago, you used to have the little hi-fi tower with like the turntable at the top and then the cassette player, CD
Oh
player.
yeah, my parents had that.
Yeah, I was literally like, he like one day taught me how to play the record. And I would spend like the afternoons like taking one record and putting it on and sitting on the sofa and listening to the song and then on to the next one. Just because I found like the putting the needle on the record type kind of like fun.
Yeah, the physical action of it. Yeah.
Exactly. It was like this was me at like 7, 6, 7, maybe even before, maybe later. I don't recall. But yeah, and my mom was like she had a little like her moment and she tried painting things.
Sure, yeah. So it sounds like there was music in the house, and you wanting to do this kind of thing, they could at least relate to it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, as if like none of them has like an artistic career per se. Yeah, there was when I was young, so much music. When we were in the car, when we were home, like I remember, like for my 8th or 9th birthday, I wanted a hi-fi stereo, small stereo for my bedroom, and that was like the best thing like that they could ever give me. I was super happy.
Yeah.
I had my little stereo. I could listen to CDs, turn on the radio whenever I wanted. I was super happy about that.
Do you remember, I ask people this sometimes, like the first piece of music or maybe a band or maybe an album that really you sort of claimed as your own, like not necessarily something your parents played for you, but something that you found somehow or somebody, came into your life randomly that like you just sort of gravitated to, got obsessed with, whatever it is?
Yeah, I mean, this answer is like a little bit, if somebody follows me on socials, they probably already know. I think I remember like this very clearly. Let's say up until like when I had my first computer, I was a very casual listener. It's like whatever came on the radio, if a song was good or not, but like it's what it is. And I kind of had like, my dad had all this like collection of CDs. So I kind of knew which ones I liked and which ones I didn't, but I didn't have a library of my own. And when I had my computer, I was like 10 and discovering like the first years of YouTube, LimeWire at the time, and iTunes too. And I remember like, I don't know where, but there was like forums or something. And I encountered like when I was like browsing randomly, oh, this is a Daft Punk forum. What's it about? And everybody in the Daft Punk forum was like praising them. Let's say like they were telling, oh, this song is so good. I wish they did this. I wish I could go to a live 2007. They were talking about that all day.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I think I recalled this name for something. I was like, yeah, 10. And I was like, what's this? What's all this about? And I remember it was a Sunday. I remember this perfectly. Foggy Sunday, no sun outside. 10-year-old me, so like a little kid.
Yeah.
I sat on my computer, typed Daft Punk on iTunes, and for some reason the most popular song was The Funk. And when I played that, my brain know that meme that had like the whole universe expanded in my mind.
Yeah, the galaxy brain.
Yeah, exactly. In that moment, everything clicked. Like I remember all afternoon I was like on LimeWire trying to find everything about Daft Punk. That specific song kind of twisted something. I was like, this is like a new interest that I have in music. I never had this kind of interest.
There's something about that song. I also really love the funk. There's something about that song in particular. And for me too, it was I don't know if it was the first Daft Punk song I heard, but it was one of the first that really just made me obsessed with them. And I've thought about this because it's one of my favorite songs of theirs. And I listen to it fairly often. And it's interesting because I don't know if you've thought about this, but it's like, it's such a simple song. Like, all Daft Punk songs, they're catchy and they have these identifiable motifs and all that. But Defunk, I mean, it's very simple. Like, it's just, the drums, the synth, the bass line. That's basically it.
It's crazy. Like, what's funny? It's simple and nobody recreated anything close to that. Like, I saw dozens of remakes on YouTube and none of them nailed the sound. It's like they had it and nobody could make it again. That's something that really like tickles my brain when I listen to something and I'm like, okay, how did they get to this? That's something that is crazy to me, because even like nowadays producers might come closer, maybe. But also, if you think like that song was like first out probably in '96, so that's like something that probably had a lot of the people at the time going like, "Whoa, okay, what is this?" Especially coming from a techno duo, they made techno up until that point.
Right?
Yeah, that's a crazy song. Honestly, I think
it really is
that as like the song that sparked everything.
And I mean, I'm sure that synth and all that, like, it must have been all analog gear at that point when they were working too. So maybe that's part of why people have such a hard time, recreating it exactly. Is I have to imagine whatever synth they made it on, whatever, patching they were doing that day, maybe it just existed for that one song. It's not necessarily.
Honestly, I have no idea. I have really no idea.
We don't have any idea about Daft Punk in general, right? Like, that's to bring it back to kind of what you're doing with the semi-anonymous thing too. I think that's part of the fun, is that, you can't get more anonymous than Daft Punk. Like, the only reason we even know who they are is because of how famous they got and how obsessed people got. But, they haven't spoken a word about it.
Oh, no, I mean, I think I read something about them that was like their big desire eventually became like trying to stay the most private possible, especially about their own decisions, their own things, their own private world, let's say. It's something that really struck with me. Like, eventually I think about it, like, I'm super active on socials and all that, but still there is something about keeping it low key or as private as possible that is really intriguing to me. Like, incorporating into this project is really something that eventually, with this kind of mentality, it came together by itself. Because I'm like, honestly, I be on Twitter and I say stuff, but realistically, if you give me Instagram and somebody tells me, oh, you should post like some stories during the day and doing something, I'm like, what's so exciting about my life? There is literally nothing happening 5 days out of 7, maybe during the weekend, but the rest of the time it's me on the computer doing stuff. Maybe if I'm touring, maybe later it's gonna be more fun. But I'm like, there is no incentive in myself to really share my private life. Some of my thoughts on the internet, sure. Some of my, obviously I use Twitter especially a lot to promote myself and promote my friends and share some music that I like, and sometimes some jokes and something like that. But realistically, there is all this like private life that I really like to keep for myself. For the most part.
I think that's smart. I think that's so smart, man. It's I was just talking to someone on this podcast last week about how to separate, you as the person from you as the artist, and how I think that's extremely important, that you have to have some kind of separation, and that basically if you took away the music part, like, who would be left? You know what I mean? And I think you have to have an answer for that. Like, that has to be a person who lives a life. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. And also, like, as we said initially, this whole thing, makes it even like fun. It makes it like a game, like a creative, even like it like fits well into like the fact that artists and musicians are like creatives. So you have this whole creative output that somebody can say, "Oh, it's the music. The music is so important." And I'm like, no, everything is important. Like you present yourself with your project, with your alias, with whatever you post online, and like in 2023, whatever you post online is how people perceive yourself. And I'm like, you know, it's probably within me to try and make this as fun as possible, as enjoyable as possible for myself first. I'm gonna admit it. I'm
Yes.
trying to make this enjoyable for myself first by stacking up one thing after the other, like the things that I like to do. If you think about it, like making a trilogy of EPs, like the mask, now the new mask, and the fact that I still try to be anonymous, but at the same time, I be joking around. Like it's like this middle way between like actually keeping it all private and actually being like low key about everything, but at the same time, not really, not really so private about everything at all. It's a little bit of a middle ground.
Yeah.
You know,
No, but I think, again, man, I think it's smart because I think, I don't know, there's such a pressure, like you were talking about, there's such a pressure on artists these days to be posting every little bit of your life, to be, on every platform, showing everything you're doing, content, you gotta, whatever, all of that. For some people, they're fine with it. Some people aren't. But whatever that is, I think when it's just you and you're posting your whole life, and then you get feedback about your art, I think it's sometimes just mentally hard to separate that feedback from like, this is something someone said about art I made versus like, this is a judgment about me as a person. You know what I mean? When you're sharing everything.
I know.
And so for you, I think it's just a nice way to kind of cut that off at the pass. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny because I talked about this with my therapist. There's like a couple things like about what he just said that my therapist, like one thing that my therapist told me is like, eventually when you discuss with people, when you get feedback, when you feel like you get judged, it's important to try and discern the people that really are upset with you versus something that people say about what you do that is not you, it's not your value. Like,
yeah,
I believe that what really drives me forward is taking everything so lightly. Like every time I try to put something more in my art, in what I do, try to give it like depth, I eventually become like a little bit, it forms this toxic relationship between me and my output that I don't really like. So versus actually like taking it lightly, it's a whole new perspective. Even what the people say back to me, I don't care. Like eventually I stop caring about any feedback. I sometimes I made fun of it. Some TikTok users had some weird feedbacks about my music, and I was like, I don't know. I was on Twitter like last month. I was like, oh shit, the TikTok reviews came in, just because like I realistically didn't care about it. I just joked a little bit about it, and I think it's super important, like what he said, and you know, I think even art and music, like it's cool to give something depth in the sense that at least what I try to do, give something like fun and interesting to the people because I like to do that. I like to get the people involved. That's something that I really like myself. But at the same time, though, I gotta admit that my art is like not really stemming from anything crazy. It's literally me being like, oh shit, this idea could be really cool. And boom, in an hour or two, usually I get a pretty nice arrangement done. So like everything is really out of like this creative output, this creative outburst that I just get every once in a while. So like, and I was like, this should be enough, and it is.
Yeah.
It is. There shouldn't be anything so crazy about it, at least from my perspective. It's like it's very low key. It's very fun. It's what I do. It's what comes out of my mind at at random times during the day. So it's just
No, it's nice, man. And yeah, you've been able to turn that into something. I mean, I think that's a great way to look at it. It makes me wonder for you, when did you start trying to make music, or even thinking that you wanted to make music?
oh man. I think I was in middle school. Yeah, okay. It was, I remember it was January. Oh shit. January 2010. I was 11, about to be 12. Yes. My birthday is actually in 4 days, but
Happy
I'm
early
gonna be
birthday then.
25. And yeah, I was downloading stuff on my computer. At that time, I was already like a little bit into how to download stuff and get my hands around anything that I found on the internet. And yeah, I was just downloading stuff here and there. There was probably some open source. It was called LMMS. It was an open source like
Okay.
Linux based DAW for some. I don't even know if it exists anymore. I'm gonna be honest. I was making the worst shit ever imaginable. I was I
Of
was
course,
into
everybody's bad when you start, man. Everybody's
yeah.
bad.
I should dig that stuff up because like we're joking, but that shit is kind of hard to. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
And then eventually I switched to FL Studio for a little bit of time. I think the next 2 years or something. And then I remember I was like not satisfied with how FL Studio handled sampling back in the day. And I was like, Ableton does this so well. I might as well just make the switch. And I think in 2012, I made the switch. But at the same time, there's like this big part of my life where music was like more casual. Like, yeah, I had some projects here and there, some things that I tried out, but nothing was like at the same time. This project is like something that I don't really take seriously as a matter of like I don't stop and try to get out the most incredible project around. But at the same time, it's the first project that I'm like, okay, this is it. We're gonna make something out of this. Before it was very casual.
Right.
It's more like a lighthearted philosophy more than the whole approach because I actually like know that this is how like, this is my job. So I take it professionally. Like just a couple hours ago, I was responding to all the with my distributor all the emails because I'm independent. I take care of that. My management
Right.
helps me out, but eventually, I'm the guy that controls the distro dashboard. So I'm like figuring out how to do all that stuff. So yeah, no, I definitely take it professionally, but at the same time, there is a sprinkle of being very lighthearted about everything that I put out, which is what fits me, if I'm gonna be honest.
Sure. Well, and I think that comes through in the way you present it and the way you interact online, all of it. There's sort of like a fun, lighthearted energy to it. It makes me wonder, that energy, I think, is going to only serve you well. And I think you'll certainly do well to like keep that energy as much as you can. But thinking about the new mask, all of this, the new EP, which of course we'll talk about in a minute. But I guess the question is, as all of this is getting bigger, I think your project is just getting more and more attention as time goes on. People are super into it. Obviously, you're taking it very seriously on some levels as well. Do you have thoughts about how to sort of keep that lighthearted energy, how to keep the playfulness, keep the fun of it while everything's growing? You're having to take on more and more responsibility. There's a certain amount of pressure people would assume comes in at a certain point. Like, have you felt any of that?
Oh yeah, like a little bit. Like sometimes I stop and be like, "Oh shit, this is actually becoming something." And when you started like elaborating the question, my heart was racing for a little bit. I was like, "Oh fuck, I haven't thought about this in a while. What if everything
My
goes
bad.
like?"
We don't have to talk
No,
about
no,
it.
it's funny because I'm like, "Oh shit, what if everything goes like super big fast?" I don't know if it's gonna happen. I don't really care. But I was like, "Oh shit, what if?" I don't know if I'm prepared. I don't know if I am prepared. I never thought about it. I was like, as my followers grow, as my following grows, being independent without like many people that tell me, actually with nobody that tells me what to do, because even my managers, shout out Nor and shout out V, my two managers, especially Nor, but V is also super involved as well because maybe I'm too difficult to manage. I don't know. No, I think they trust me a lot. They trust my decision. They trust my last call. So like what we talk about together is mainly business and a lot of creative stuff. Like they're very creative people both. And so like we talk about a lot of like the creative ideas because I just like throw ideas down in a very scattered way. So eventually we have brainstorms and meetings and I'm like, okay, you have all these ideas. Now what do we do with them? But coming back to your questions, I don't know, man. I don't think anything's gonna change eventually just because I don't want to jinx it, but I think it took me like a little bit of time to find my sweet spot. It definitely I had the moments that I was probably overthinking everything about the project, And even if things were going well, even if they didn't, some moments just came by. And again, approaching everything in a professional way, but also with a lighthearted philosophy is something that I think not only I want to keep, but I think is also important. Otherwise, being independent or having a super small team, of course, you got to keep it fun. You got to keep it like that. Otherwise, it may be too easy for it to like get to your head and then get super stressed about stuff. Eventually just going straight and not caring so much about it. I think that's the answer. Like just being myself like that and keep doing the things that I do the way that I'm doing them. Like, yeah. I don't think anything's gonna change. You had me for a moment though. Yeah, I was like, oh shit, I haven't even thought about it. Oh well.
Well, I guess I kind of I mean that's good, man. And I think your head's in the right place about all of that kind of stuff. I mean, I was wondering too about you mentioned like touring down the road and that kind of thing. Have you done live shows at all yet?
Not realistically, no. Being in Europe and having like 60-70% of my followers and listeners in the US is a little bit it makes it all difficult, visa and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
But hopefully, like again, we picked a good example. I was overthinking about this so much. I was like, oh, I'm doing these things are going well when I'm gonna get to tour, when I'm why even bothering? The time's going to come by itself. And
yeah, it'll happen when it happens. That's absolutely right. I mean, yeah, maybe it's too early to even say, but do you have thoughts as far as like what the future might look like if things got bigger, as far as like, how you would want to do a live show, that kind of thing?
Oh, I'm a fan of DJing. Like, I think some people would love to see me live performing. But I keep DJing, like DJing has a really, really special spot in my heart. So I hope that nobody gets upset if I don't really do live shows. Maybe
I don't think
I don't know, man. Like
upset.
if I get to some insanely big level, probably I'll sort something up. Even poor Robinson eventually did it for the last tour. So I'm like, I'll see. But no, I'm really in love with DJing. Like my free time, which is like, let's say, in the last 2-3 days, my free time, I was literally like going ham on Tractor and trying some track lists, some mixes, something, downloading new music and trying it out, trying to see what fits, getting used to how the track sounds, so I know where to switch stuff, and hopefully I do it for fun, but hopefully I can translate that to live show.
Well, yeah, of course, man. I mean, I saw a bit of your the like holiday live stream DJs.
Yeah, that was insane. Like 3 hours, man. I don't know. Like I don't think anyone can tell from the recording, but I was sweating like top to bottom. I was dripping in sweat completely.
That's great though, man. That's how you know it's fun. I mean, and just watching it, I could tell you were having fun, but also you were working. I mean, it was a good, like, well put together set.
I've been
And I think kind of that
for a long time. I was
yeah. And I think that lighthearted energy we were talking about too, like it came through. It was a fun watch. You were playing interesting music in an interesting way. I mean, I think you got that part handled more or less.
Thank you so much. No, I think even like maybe you're also referring to the mixes that were like, you know, maybe mixing the Prodigy with Nelly Furtado or
Sure,
that's
sure.
not. It's probably because for like when I was in high school, I was like the party's DJ. So like if you had a birthday party or bachelor party or whatever, like I DJed at bars to super small clubs. So like locally, I've been doing that for 10 years, maybe 11 years now. So I kind of know how to get my hands around a mixer and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I'm happy that you say that the energy that I try to put out really comes out of even like the mix selection and how I do stuff, because yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about eventually. Like if you come to a camoufly show, eventually you're gonna find that you're gonna have a very fun time. I believe that's the energy that I want to give out. Having a fun time, maybe singing along, maybe going crazy to some like I don't know 150 techno something. I don't know. Like it can get wherever, depends on how I'm feeling and how the crowd is reacting. But at the same time, though, there is this lighthearted energy will probably still be the catalyst.
Yeah, man. Even the party edits. I mean, that's something. This is kind of a separate conversation, but like that's something I wish more artists would do. You know, touring artists. There's kind of become this thing that, you know, if you become known as a producer, when you tour, you know, you're just supposed to play your own original music. And that's kind of looked at as like the pinnacle of the art form, is like when somebody can get to a point where they're playing all originals in their set. And I get that to a certain extent, but then where I come from, you know, I have a DJ background before I was a producer, any of that. And for me, the DJing itself was always part of the fun and part of the art. And I wish people would do that more, honestly, like play a little party edit or play, you know, somebody else's tune, or even just like some pop song.
Yeah, no,
I wish people would do it more.
Song. Sometimes I found a fun remix of my own song and I'm like, damn, this goes hard. I'm gonna play it instead of my own version.
Right.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's something that I can like probably still keep in mind. I gotta keep that in mind. Sometimes, you know, when you're DJing, usually, you said it right. You get to a point where you're like big enough to be like, oh, should I just play my music? And somebody that I saw DJing live that didn't play like 6 or 7 songs of his maximum in a 90-minute DJ set was Flume. I saw the Flume DJ set, and there was tons of Muramasa, tons of whatever, and yeah, obviously like maybe some more Flume songs, some people on stage singing with him, some singers. It was something really fun to be there, and even if it's not like the Flume live show, or even if it's not a complete Flume discography DJ set, it was fun. You could feel like he having fun putting in all that music. And that's what he said. Like, DJing is actually about like making a connection with the crowd for the whole time that you're performing. So like
100%.
My philosophy is I shouldn't burn that or make that a little bit worse because I need to play my own music. I was like, instead I can select a bunch of my songs that can fit in, of course. But it's gotta be a fun show. Like I'm having fun. If I put like Better Off Alone right after my song, I'm having the most fun ever. Or I usually play like there's like a lot of songs that eventually come through my sets, and I have this big like 1,000 song playlist, but some songs that I just keep playing them every time I go live on Twitch or do something. It's like Archangel by Burial or Heaven by DJ Sammy. There's some like these songs I really have a special connection with, because they're like, maybe they sound corny, even like L'amour toujours. That song is special to me. I'm like, damn, I really want the people to feel what I feel when I hear the song.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it's really, to me, this kind of connection to be like, this is what I like, of course, but I want to translate this in a way that me and the crowd are actually on the same level. We're connecting. We're on the same
yeah.
voyage, if you want to get poetic,
Yeah. I mean, to get even more pretentious about it, I think there's layers of communication in that, right? Because when you show up and you play your original music, that's saying, okay, here's what I made, and maybe you're here because you like what I made, or you were inspired by it, or it does something for you. But then to play something that you love next to that sort of takes it another layer for me, where it's, okay, so you feel this way when you hear this thing I made. I feel this way when I hear this thing that somebody else made, right? And you kind of, for me, you can kind of draw those lines and have that conversation. And, in the moment, it's just like a sweaty dance party. It doesn't have to be that deep. But I do kind of think that's what's happening when it's really good.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. And yeah, I think you said it in the best way possible. It's constant like connection of you give an energy to the crowd, and the crowd gives the energy back. I'm not like, I'm a very rational guy. I believe in science and all that. But yeah. I called a whole EP phase. So I have my right. whole like grade of getting into what happens at that lane. And something I firmly believe in is energy. Like, even like from a scientific point of view, there's like so many things that science like cannot explain per se. But if you go like, let's say, something that excites me, amazes me, is like you go zoom into like our cells, zoom into the molecules and all that, and you get to a point where you cannot discern what composes the what we're made of. So like I'm saying it with very bad terminology. I hope
I know what you mean.
That there's like the scientist or something watches this, but
yeah, it's all right. We don't have a lot of scientists.
Yeah, I was cool in high school. Then something happened, but yeah. You get to this point, and I'm like, eventually, you can recognize that on this very very microscopic level, there is just continuous exchanges of energy, and I'm like, isn't this actually what happens with like us and whatever surrounds us? Like, we're constantly eventually exchanging energy, both from a scientific point of view and to me from a like, let's say, a spiritual point of view. I believe that putting out good energy gives back good energy, not from like any insane point of view, but it's like as simple as that. Like, when people be like, oh, you're fun to hang out with, it's probably because like maybe I put out some fun energy, so people get the energy, and it's right. You can make cool connection. You make a cool situation happen, and it gets to a point where everybody's feeling good, and that thing that happens within a DJ and a crowd is making that kind of connection, giving and receiving energy continuously. It's a funny way. It's a kind of funny spiritual way in which I see things.
Yeah, well, to me, it's all about sort of tricking or short circuiting the sort of intellectual part of our brain to get to the more instinctual level of it, right? Because I think like going to see a DJ and dancing around and all that, you have to be a little uninhibited to do it. Like, and I think all of us have, certain fears or insecurities, or even just the like social etiquette of how you're supposed to interact with people that tells us, you don't want to let loose, you don't want to lose control, any of that. And I think as a DJ, if you're doing your job right, is kind of inviting people in to say, no, it's cool. Do whatever you want. Like it's, safe space, totally open. Everything's accepted. There's no, all those norms, you can leave that at the door. And, here we can just have some fun, like you said. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it comes back to that of like allowing people to let loose and to feel comfortable. And I mean, it's funny, we're talking so intellectually about this when I think the best DJ sets are all instinct.
I was about to say that.
It's
eventually,
all kind of,
like we're like analyzing it afterwards. Obviously, when you're into it, you just let it flow, and you can maybe prepare something or something like that. But eventually, even like I prepare my DJ set sometimes. Like for the Christmas set, I prepared a lot of it, and then like sometimes I did some like I jumped here and there. Like I had like a lot of tracks listed, and then I jumped here and there just because. But mostly, what I used to do back like a couple of months ago on Twitch was like jumping on Twitch and DJing, and that was completely like random. And that's I don't make a big distinction out of it because I believe that even like when I prepare track lists, I'm actually like it's like writing a little story. So eventually I think that with my experience as a DJ, I can write this cool story, which is the track list. So it's kind of like it doesn't really take away that much from improvising. But yeah, of course, like even when you're improvising, you're going full instinct. You'd be like, again, given what's your experience and given what the crowd is giving you back and where you wanna bring them forward, and what's your taste. A lot of these things come into play, but yeah, obviously you don't stop and think too much about it. Probably at the moment.
Yeah. I like that you said writing a story with a set, because that I think about it that way too, and I think the best DJs are the ones who are just really good storytellers, that kind of thing. And it makes me wonder too. So like, we covered that you put out this whole project called Faith, and you had Apotheosis, and I noticed for some of your older projects, you would actually write like a little blurb that you posted along with them. Like Faith, I saw there, you were talking about sort of just that you had been thinking about the idea of faith and sort of what it meant to you then and now. And I wanted to ask you for the new EP, In Plain Sight, which I think by the time people hear this, see this, it'll be out. Yeah. Do you look at it similarly? Like, is there a theme? Is there something going on in your life, or just some thoughts you've been having that kind of relate to this EP?
Now that I think about it, I don't think about like it's funny because I don't stop and think about like as of lately I don't stop and think about probably the amount of meanings that my whole projects can have. For In Plain Sight, yeah, of course, like the past EPs were like very, very attached to what I was feeling at the moment. I like art, of course, so the moment that I found some cool art to attach to it, was like probably like a little bit of a symbol of something that, because I found the Apotheosis art, then I found I think the Faith art, and then the Giant, and then some couple other ones, and I was like, I picked for each one like the mood and I in that case for the whole trilogy I tried to tell like a story. It started with Apotheosis because like I had my troubles before Camoufly started, or like the first couple of months. So I was like, there we go, Apotheosis. I just wanna go to my maximum level of everything, and just this burst of energy, Then the Giant was like more referred to a moment when I was very much more in my head about everything, about my life, about music, about a lot of things. And I saw it like, I saw let's say the bad things in life, the things that want to keep you down, as this giant to fight. you overcome them. You like as everything in life. At some point, I think in most cases, I would say if you really want to go to a better place mentally or physically, or whatever you want, you do something. You do your best to actually move out of that. You fight. You have probably even
Yeah.
worse moments sometimes, but you fight through it. That's what life is about, at least to me. Sometimes things keep you down, but you don't gotta let them win. And
Right.
faith was a little bit even more introspective, because I found that I was like lacking some faith in my life. Like I was going all in on things, but there is all there. It's like even when fighting stuff, it's like you don't know what you're doing it for. You're like a little bit lost. And I was like, people who have faith, people who really strictly believe in the religious, like in religion in general or whatever, like adjacent to it. I'm like, yeah, I wish I had that. So I had this big moment of reflection. I was like, eventually I have this my whole set of beliefs, of course, but uh yeah, it was this whole moment where I was trying to give everything more of a meaning, because yeah, the whole concept of faith within oneself, with the universe, I think I have faith in the universe. And it's like sometimes I'll be like, the universe got me. I just gotta go out there and put myself into stuff, and then we'll see what happens. The
Yeah.
universe knows my path, so something like this. I don't want to be controlling for everything. I don't want to be excessively like, obsessed with knowing the next steps.
Faith to me too is kind of, I don't even know if I go as far as thinking like, I've got a path and the universe has me. But what I do kind of land on in that same vein is just like, I think faith at its core is accepting that you're not in control
Yes, exactly.
in some way or
Yeah,
another.
I didn't have
And
the words, and like,
yeah. And I think, and I'm just assuming this, so tell me if I'm wrong, but you talking about how you're doing everything yourself, you have management, but you're still fulfilling like all these roles, and you've really sculpted this project. I would imagine that maybe giving up control is hard for you a little, or at least was in the past.
I don't know, like, I had my take. I have this, like, we can start a whole lot of podcasts about what I think about the music industry. So I'll leave that aside for
Yeah.
a second. But I had my own, like, amount of good and bad experiences in music, as probably many of my fellow producers have, and DJs too. So obviously, like, thinking about it, I think it was like my first like burst of faith was literally me being like, you know what? I don't need a label, because I feel like what I can put into this project will talk by itself. Maybe I could have made better with a label. Who knows? Yeah, obviously, like, it's not more about me not being in control. Of course, that kind of upsets me sometimes, but it's it's minor upsetting. It's like, obviously I have my philosophy about the music industry, so I'm not like I'm not the biggest fan of record labels at this current time. I
Yeah.
know that many labels, like I am in contact with lots of labels, and I'm gonna probably do one or two singles on some labels here and
Sure.
there. I don't think like, oh, record labels are the devil. Like, I know they're many of them are actually putting in lots of work. So
Yeah, of
like,
course, of course.
and treating the artist correctly. At this point in time, I stop and say, wow, it's really cool that now I had this idea of being independent 2 years ago. And now Kawaii Bounce, which is my record label, can actually become something, even if I'm the only one at this time. Maybe, I got something going on. And that's something that I understood while making the project. Like, starting from the bootlegs, I was trying to, if you go to my Bandcamp, there's like a collection of bootlegs for
Yeah.
divided in three. And it's like, I liked that the fact that with an artistic project, you can stack things up and build it. Well, I like building. That's probably the main reason why I'm independent, because I like building things myself. I can of course take some offers here and there, but there's nothing for me quite like the feeling of building something. So like a lot of reasons. I think this is probably the main one.
Yeah. Well, and
But yeah,
I think it comes through as well, man. Not only in the music, which I think is pretty identifiable as you, like it's a unique sound, but it's also in the way, I mean, it's kind of everything we're talking about, but I think like your social media presence too, there's something about it that I think you can kind of just tell instinctually that you're doing it your own. It feels very personal. There's kind of like there's like an intimate feeling to it that I think you don't get as much of when it's, when it's a label putting something in front of people, and, there's like another layer of it. And there's nothing wrong with either side, but I think the way you're doing it is great, is kind of perfect for the perspective that you have and kind of the attitude you're trying to put out there, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah. I honestly, I can see where that comes from. I see a lot of the labels being like, okay, today we have this release, tomorrow we have this compilation. It's kind of robotic. It's kind of not really like, it takes it away. Like, again, we talked about initially, obviously there's something in my private life that I don't want to share. And I'm still not very keen to using like real life situations for my own social media promotion. Like I don't be like, oh, I'm going to McDonald's, boom, Instagram story. I don't care about doing that. But at the same time, though, I care a lot about this project. So it comes naturally for me to act as if it's like my little project, my little thing, my little creature, my little baby.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's, I play around a lot. You see, I wear this fucking mask, so I don't care. I don't really care about being very, very strict, very, very inside these boundaries that sometimes you see. Like, even I think there was a discourse some time ago that somebody was like, oh, Fred again is so famous because he's genuine. And I'm like, okay, stop it a little bit. Like, there's a lot of people involved in the Fred again project. Right. So, you can be genuine, of course, but if you talk about fame, he's obviously great producer, great team behind him, great songs, of course, great shows. There's so many things. It's kind of, dumb. I don't want to offend whoever said this, but it's kind of dumb from my perspective, being like, is it really because it's genuine? Because there's a lot of people for me being genuine.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh shit, I feel like I'm being genuine, but I had more like the listeners 2 years ago on Spotify, because who knows?
Right.
I don't pay
well, I think
to
it's like your excitement in your own ideas comes through.
Yes.
Like another person who I think does that well is Madian, where he's putting on these like huge shows, right? These like very cinematic. He's like flying up.
He's
flying up in the air, and it's like a full rock star kind of show. But then the way he talks about it, and I've talked with him about this too, is it's the same thing where he gets excited to tell you about the stitching on a piece of merch or something, because for him, thinking about all those little details is fun. Building that whole world is fun, and it's he likes to kind of share those parts of it. It's not this sort of unapproachable, like godlike figure. He's just like, no, look at all this fun shit I figured out how to do. And I think because he kind of, doesn't put it up on a pedestal, no pun intended, I think that allows people to connect with it a little more,
Yeah, absolutely. I think I talked over you at the start because I was like super excited that he was like, oh, you're excited about what you do. Yes, I indeed am. And that's like, if we want to talk about the next EP, like I'm gonna connect to that because that's exactly what's happening now. Like before, all the EPs had a really good story. For this EP, I don't have any great story. I don't have anything. I like to associate the CP with Euphoria because this is really like me being excited about my own music while I'm making it.
Yeah.
And to me, at that point, when I had all these tracks stacked up, like 12, 13 finished tracks, the only thing that left to do was like, how do I present this to people in a fun way? And I did everything that I found funny and interesting. And the cover art, the little guy, everything about it is something that I would like to see in an EP. It's stupid. If somebody asks me, oh, what's the meaning behind this song? I was like, I don't know. It's a dance song with some lyrics. Like even the lyrics are scattered words. I love when songs have scattered words
because I love that
like,
too.
You can do whatever you want with these lyrics, even if they say two things. I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of a Daft Punk fan.
No, I'm right there with you, man. It's one of my favorite things in dance. It's one of the reasons I love dance music so much. Is like, yeah, you do so much with so little. Just like someone singing "Music Takes Me Away," you know, like whatever it is, the most generic thing possible. But if you put it in the right context, it can mean like everything in the world. You know, there's something so cool about that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that. The only thing that I can recall about this new songs is literally like me being like this and jamming to them when I was making them.
Well, it's like you're being a fan. I like it because you're sort of looking at it from a fan perspective, even though it's your own project, right? Of like, what would I be excited about if this was somebody else's project, right? Like, what would be the coolest way to make me excited about it?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's something that it came together when there was the moment to prepare the whole project. So, but even like presenting it visually, even the visual ideas, they came together in a split second. I remember the title; it has a meaning, obviously, because like in plain sight, it will mean something more in the future. But it's also something that I remember like back in October, I was about to have a meeting with my management. The point of the meeting was, what are we gonna do with this next song? So 1 hour before the meeting, I sat down and I was like, what can be cool to be done? And during that meeting, we brainstormed all the 2023 camoufly and maybe even 2024 camoufly things. Whatever you will hear comes out of one meeting, probably, because I was thinking about what do I think when I listen to this music, and I was thinking about, I don't know, running around a field, and then I was like, I should take photos in the field. I know a field like near here, a couple of minutes away from here, like up a little mountain, and I'm gonna take photos there. And I'm like, it all makes sense. Title, I don't know, like in plain sight, it's a cool title. It's a cool saying. It will mean something. It will also, like, there's a part of this that I don't want to spoil because I want to.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you mentioned you had written a whole bunch of songs, and obviously there's only 4 on this EP, so I would assume there's future releases to come, kind of in the same vein.
Yeah, we're getting exactly to the.
Yeah. We don't have to like go too deep into it, but I just wanted to make that point that this is maybe. Because you said you were talking about how you had like a trilogy of releases beforehand. And so this seems like maybe it's just a new story that you're going to tell in some parts.
Exactly.
Well, let me ask you, like, because I've heard the whole EP now and it's great, man. I really love it. And I was comparing it to some of your earlier work, and you can certainly see the through line. I think it's cohesive with everything you've put out up to this point, but it also feels like an evolution. You used the word euphoric. I actually had written down that it was like really joyful sounding music. You could tell there's like a happy energy to it. It's got, a lot of like some of the trademarks people might know you for, the synth solos, that kind of thing. Have you evolved as a producer, as a songwriter? Do you see these songs differently than songs you've written in the past? Or did you do something differently with your production?
I think the main takeaway is I just shifted from making like, let's say, this kind of SoundCloud, not even feature based, but like this kind of very pretty bass music that I
Yeah.
made before. I just had a switch like by the end of 2021, which is when Told You So came out. I was already preparing Faith. So the last song of Faith, funny enough, it's Told You So. And it's like, it tells you a little bit about what's to come next now. So it's a funny like line to draw between like the shows you have the EPs and
Right.
what is coming out now. But aside from that, I feel like a better producer? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe, but sometimes I feel like I'm even more lazy. I feel like sometimes I'll be like, I'm just like literally looking for samples and chopping them up, which is something that I always done. But doing it with house music now, with this kind of groove, like sometimes even garage drum patterns and like this garage or house or like in general, like backbone of the song, it's even funnier. It's something that it excites me to do it. So I didn't change that much in my own perspective. And it's cool to see that even for you, there's like something remarkable about the project, but also something that people can say, oh, this is camoufly. Like I heard camoufly in 2021 and this is still camoufly. A little bit different, but yeah, it's funny that you say that. It probably means that I made something cohesive too.
I think so, man. Yeah, I mean even just the I guess like the easiest identifier of it is those synth solos. And I wanted to ask you just a little bit about those specifically, because I think not only people kind of associate that with you, but you post little synth solos from time to time. Do you play piano? Do you know piano, or is this all in the DAW?
Yeah, I mentioned I'm getting lazier because I could probably, if I got my hands like, I wasn't living at home for the most part of last year, and I couldn't bring the big digital piano with me. So the result was me actually like, I was fucking around with a little MIDI keyboard and then the OP one that I have here.
Yeah.
I just right now, I'm gonna be honest, it's just catching dust, but it was cool to play
right.
But as a MIDI controller too. But yeah, and I can play piano. It's the only instrument that I'm actually a little bit good with, but it's been quite a long time that I don't actually play it. So even if it's in front of me, like I'm so used to like pick samples. And I was gonna say all the synth solos, all the synth lines, and everything are written down like note by note, just double clicking on the piano roll until I hit it right, because it was a moment in my life that I kind of had to do that, and that's how it went. Like I low key, I want to get back to my piano shit, but it's not something that I feel like it's needed right now. So yeah, sometimes I jam, but I can say I was better at piano a couple of years ago just because I was playing more frequently or laying down chords and stuff more frequently through the piano. Being away from it for a lot of months kind of stopped that for a bit. And even like in the EP, there's like a lots of obscure samples and shifted samples, chopped samples. Lots of it, it's samples, and lots of it is like, it's funny because whenever I like play synths or something in a song, it's always like something that you can recognize instantly, and the rest is just, I don't know, this big funny mess of samples most of the time. And the biggest part for me is like when I mix the song, trying to be like, okay, I put together all the samples. Now, how did mixing? Sometimes some samples don't really sound so well together. Like you'd be like, hey, creatively, this sounds good together, but mixing wise, this sounds like shit. So lots of the time that I spend actually making music is trying to narrow down like every section to sound actually cool and not for the samples and the pads, the synths or whatever you got clashing together. Like I gotta avoid that a little bit, because when you pick a lot of samples, shift them, chop them, you can find a lot of a lot of stuff that is not fun to deal with, resonances, whatever.
Yeah.
I love resonances. I'm gonna be honest. Resonances, I believe, are something that has been taken away too much from music. I hear like I was listening to Block Party. It's I don't even know if they're active anymore. I was listening to Block Party and I was like, shit, like this is all resonances. I know it's like rock, punk rock, or whatever you want to call it, indie rock. But this is like making me feel something. Why is dance music so against resonances versus like going all in with the kicks, and obviously like drums are important and all that. But there can be like this middle ground that I like to go with my music.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, it's funny thinking about like the trends in electronic music production, because you just made me realize that I think like talking about Block Party and how dance music at a certain point was a little like dirtier or grittier, and then it got super polished at a certain point. But I think it's so funny because there'll be a new trend or a new sound, and kind of everyone will slowly like gravitate towards this one ideal or like the one way production should be done. And it goes and it goes and everyone's doing the same thing. And then at some point, one person will go and do something different and break the rules that everyone was following. And then all of a sudden everyone starts heading that direction, right? And it makes me think about your production, which I think is a little removed from that game, because it seems like you just, maybe it's partly you being independent and just sticking to your guns, not only like ideologically, but production wise too. I feel like you've been a little out of that game. Like, I feel like your music has always just kind of sounded like you. It hasn't particularly sounded like you're chasing a sound, or that you were, I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of influences and all that, but I'm talking about, I guess, like hearing someone's stuff and being affected to change your own, you know what I mean?
No, I'm super happy you say this, because I have been in my head about, finding my own sound and all that. And it's funny because it's something that I just discovered like recently, relatively, in recent times. It's like I'm already sculpting it. It's coming together release by release. And maybe it's what you said, like the fact that I don't have a reference out there. I have my inspirations. Like somebody that listens to my music can be like, oh, this guy really likes, I don't know, Daft Punk and Sam Galatry and whatever, man. I don't know, like lots of people that influence my music. I won't deny that. But at the same time, though, I always think that I can, for every song, I still have this kind of thing where I think I really want to get, which is like the other word that I have for DCP besides euphoria is also emotion. I think that a little bit of a common thing with all my music is trying to really go very far within emotions. Whether it's like a very like chill song, very like slow paced song like Safe or Possibilities, or when it's more a faster song. Like I'm very much of a fan of having every section of the track matter and give something to you. Even if my tracks don't have anything crazy in terms of inspiration of something, like they come within like very like outbursts, very like short outbursts for some reasons that I haven't thought about. I can say that maybe the thing is like the common thing is trying to give these emotions that I want to give. And for me, it translates to using a specific set of sound or a specific type of progression or structure or, whatever makes a song basically. But yeah, that's kind of my language at the end of the day. So even if I make house music which is what's happening right now, at the end of the day, like in I'm going to say my official releases, because my edits and bootlegs are like much more, even more lighthearted. They're like whatever comes to my mind, it translates into the DAW, and I'm like, fuck it, let's put it out.
Talking about influences, are you a video game guy? Because that's another thing I wrote down about a lot of your music. It felt like there was a strong video game influence.
I will surprise you here. I don't play video games in a long time.
Okay.
I haven't played. I think the last video game I finished was GTA 5 right before the pandemic.
Right.
Then I've been a Pokemon fan. I can say that like Pokemon music gets me super emotional.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I'm doing something else. I don't know. I'm like doing some business stuff or something else. And I just put like the Pokemon Diamond soundtrack.
Right.
Or the Pokemon Emerald soundtrack. That's the games that I played when I was little. I was more of a video game guy there, but in high school I was more of a nerd. So studying took some time out of me. And when I wasn't studying, I was making music basically just for the sake of it. So like eventually, yeah, I can say that video games and video game soundtracks had an impact on how I imagine music. Probably I can say that. I like if I listen to this is funny. There's like a song. I don't want to sample snitch here, but there's a song with something that I'm gonna say sounds really, really similar to like the Pokemon Ruby intro.
Okay.
As a sample, by DJ Streaks. It's like it's called The Best Rapper Alive, I think, something like that. And that song was like the soundtrack of all my car rides for all 2021 and even 2022, because the fact that there is something that sounds like that in a dance record is really like sending me literally, I don't know, man. It gets me excited even talking about it. That was the most genius galaxy brain move ever, and it sounds so good. I would recommend everybody to take a listen.
Yeah,
to
I
that
haven't
song.
heard it. I got to check it out. And I think too, on the video game soundtrack note, you were saying that something you're trying to do in your production is sort of take the idea of emotion or a feeling and make it sort of the strongest, the biggest version of that. Like, how far can we push this idea or this feeling? That's something I think video game soundtracks and kind of cartoons too, to bring it back to that, is very good at. Of it's really the extreme. Like, the best game soundtracks are the ones that immediately like make you feel something, get you immediately deeper into the game. And I think that's something your project shares a lot of, man, because it's really not
funny.
Yeah, it's funny because like we've spent this whole time talking intellectually about all these ideas, but then what it comes down to, and I would say this about your project too, is like it takes all this thinking to make sort of the simplest idea, right? It's like, how do we strip away enough? How do we streamline it enough so that what's left is kind of this pure version of the thing we're trying to say?
Yeah, it's funny because it's sometimes like the best songs, the best emotions that I wanna put in songs come again like very like short-lived outbursts. I can make a song, a whole arrangement in a couple hours, maybe an hour, 2 hours. But sometimes though, some songs take more than that. Sometimes I get stuck in the simplest things. That happens too, because I'm like, sometimes it would Always, which is like track number 2. I remember Always was like 1 minute long for a couple of months. It was a minute, and like after the first, let's say drop. Some people hate the word. The first drop, and then the first like thing after the drop. There's like, I don't want. No, DP is gonna be out.
Yeah, they'll have it.
Be like there's like a whole synth line going after the drop, and then boom, the song stopped there for a while. And I was looking for something that would continue to give the same feeling. Like if like I was like, there's gonna be a pause, because obviously we danced for a minute, and like I wanted to be a pause here. And my thing was, how do I translate this in something that can be the best pause ever? And eventually, by trying different stuff out, I came with this idea of putting the pitch shifted piano. And I was like, this can be a little like breathing room for the whole song. But at the same time, though, we keep it emotional. It's like a little
Right.
piano riff going on and a piano, a piano line that I pitch up and down all throughout. And I was like, yeah, this keeps giving me the same feeling that the whole first part of the song does.
Yeah, it's a good note, man, because I think that's just on a like a nerdy producer tip, for all the producers who are listening to this, I think that's a problem everyone runs into is, yeah, you get the cool idea down, and then there's the second step of trying to turn it into a full song that's a hard moment kind of always. But I think it's a good thing to keep in mind what you were just saying of like, it's not necessarily, well, how do I just extend this? How do I make it longer? It's sort of, no, like what can I add to this that has the same feeling, that has the same like cohesive emotion to it. And it's not necessarily so much about a mathematical, how do we just make this longer,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this whole interview felt like a lot of the things that I never like stopped and thought about are coming out of it, because when you said it's a hard moment, the reality of things that, and it's also like still attached to the lighthearted feeling that I also have when I make music is like, how do I solve like, let's say I'm at the roadblock. The song is like, stops there. And now what? I obviously like, sometimes I have the idea of a song in mind already. Sometimes I don't. And how do I solve it? Just trying stuff out. Yeah. Picking a new plugin. Maybe I have some money saved up. Let's buy something new. Let's see if the demo sounds interesting.
Yeah. I think there's something to that, man, of, if the initial idea you sort of make in an hour or two, and it's this burst of creativity, and then the burst of creativity is done, it's sort of just, you sort of reset mentally and try to see if you can get to that moment again. And it's less about worrying about the stuff you already did and more about trying to recapture, like find again that excitement, right? And if you can just keep finding that excitement, eventually you're going to end up with a full piece of music that has those moments in it.
That's the fun of being a producer, if I'm going to be honest. Like, you can think of roadblocks, of course, as something that stops you. But what if the roadblocks are actually what tries to, take you gotta give the best out of yourself to come out of it, come out with a song sometimes. Sometimes I scrap songs. Like sometimes I'll be like, you know what? I give up. See you in 2 years or something. Yeah. It happened for the song Alone from the third EP. It was a demo for all 2021, and I finished it 2 weeks before turning the EP in. I was missing one song, and I already told everybody that the EP was ready, and it wasn't.
Right.
I was still managed, so I took some wild decisions back then. I told the EP is ready. I was already contacting PR, contacting people, be like setting it up, and the song was not finished, like not at all. But yeah, I came back to this idea, and that's like, I think I shared it on my Discord. And the people, like, I shared some ideas that I was like, what ideas should I continue today? And I shared like 2 or 3 because I didn't have any new ideas. So I was like, let's continue an old one. Let's let the people choose it. They told me that was the one to continue. I was like, deal.
You're making me realize is that I think that's a good trick for producers is that, we all hit roadblocks at certain points. And I think the trick is maybe to, instead of getting frustrated and just trying to, beat your head against the wall, it's more about you kind of got to be grateful and be like, okay, like this isn't working. So maybe this is a sign that it's time to try a different thing. Or maybe this is a sign that I need to step away and come back. Or maybe there's a sign that like, I need to just do something fun and stop being so serious about, whatever it is. But it's like, if you just take that as just like a stop sign, or like, it's time to turn this around, try something else. That's like almost a fun way to look at it, is just being like, oh, nothing I can do. Got to try a new idea.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I was about to say, like something that I think like I kind of got it, and eventually, with therapy, I mentioned it already. Sometimes I go to therapy and be like, I tell the therapist what's up and how to, like, I don't know. I fuck with the guy a lot, so like I like to tell the people what he tells me, and he like one of the first things that he told me is like, you got to be very like careful, but not careful as in like you gotta love yourself, and it means that you gotta give good energy to yourself. In the moment that, for example, for us especially, we get into a roadblock, we get to be like, oh, this stuff is not working. I have no ideas. Your brain can either like, maybe you don't care, and that's also good. But sometimes you'd be like, oh shit, maybe I'm really not that good as a producer. This sounds like a good song. Why am I stuck here? Like you can go down that path, but it's not like what I realized just recently is like I gotta be really careful in loving myself, as in the energy I give myself. Telling this stuff out loud or thinking it gives so much bad energy to myself. That is like, how am I supposed to get out of a slump if I tell myself that I won't?
Right.
If I tell myself that I'm not good, if I tell myself that this shit is not working out, take it with philosophy again. Like the last thing you said is a good thing to say. Sometimes we're like, you know what? It's enough for today. If I don't have new ideas tomorrow, I'm going to come back to this in a week, in a month. Something that I don't want to allow myself to do is really spending a lot of my mental like energy just beating myself up, because what my therapist told me is like, you don't get out of bad situations if you beat yourself up a lot.
Yeah.
If you be like, oh, maybe I'm not good, maybe this shit is not really working out, I should consider studying again. I don't know. I should consider going back to university. Like this is not really it. Like sometimes life drives you around and makes you take crazy decisions, but up until that point, why beating yourself up? Sometimes weird shit happens, sometimes bad shit happens, but while it's not happening, why beating yourself up?
Yeah.
I'm not saying like you should be low key about everything in your life. Sometimes there's serious shit, obviously, but sometimes, like, I don't know, making music to me, like in the span of a year, from getting really stressed, I'm going to be honest, about making music. I don't want to jinx it, but it became something like a game, or something natural, and something that I'm not really beating myself up about it. If I'm stuck with a song, if I don't have ideas for a cool like cover art or a cool like creative idea, I'm like, well, I'm gonna try it, and it's nothing comes out of it. Like, who knows? The universe will tell me. Like one day I'll wake up with an idea.
Right.
Like even having a deadline sometimes helps out. You'd be like, oh, I gotta have an idea before this date, so you get your brain going. But obviously, like if you use that time and be like, oh shit, 7 days left, I have no ideas. 6 days left, I have no ideas. I'm maybe you'll get an idea, but that's not really.
Yeah, it's not how creativity works. Yeah,
you stress yourself. Yeah, you get super stressed about something that, in most cases, just comes together. Even like sometimes, even like a day before deadline or the same day. Sometimes you wrap tracks up that you thought you haven't been doing. The brain works in mysterious ways. But we got to take care of it.
Yeah. And I think, this is coming back to the idea of faith and the idea of the energy we put out there too. There is something to, if you believe things are going to work out and eventually, and that you'll figure things out at some point, and that everything will be all right, that if it's not okay now, it'll end up okay eventually. Like that kind of mindset, it does work, I think, at the end of the day. There's like, we all stress out about the little things in our lives, the day-to-day things, and the bigger things too, of like, where's my life going? Where's my career going? All of that. But I think if you can just approach it as, again, it's accepting that it's not always going to be great too, right? Where it's like, okay, yeah, like it's rough right now, but I still have the core belief that this is going to work out. I just don't know how yet. There's something to that I think does actually affect the outcome.
Oh yeah. And also, like, it's funny because I tell this to so many people. And, people don't tell me anything back, but some of my friends, some of the people that I know in my life are like, oh, I don't really know what to do next. Oh, I don't really know where my life is headed. And like, I don't want to say that I understood anything crazier or like more than them. Like, of course, I'm just a guy. I know 2 or 3 things, but obviously I don't have the answer to anything in particular. But sometimes I like, even just going towards everything with the good philosophy makes it so that, like, even if you look back, you're like, oh, I lived so many good moments. Like sometimes I go back and be like, even like sometimes it's been hard as hell, but with the ups and downs, it's been a good ride so far, And maybe it's something that has struck me from when I was like much more little, that I think I had it building up within myself that I wanted to do something within my creativity. So like you set your brain towards that idea, and eventually, even if I'm 24, it just happened that it's just now becoming a reality. But even all like my story, looking back with it, I had some pretty rough moments too. I don't, that's also something that I want to keep private.
Right.
This is, for example, something that I want to keep private. But I'm like, looking back, it's been a wild ride, and it's been kind of a cool one too. Like, it's been hard. It's something that I see is also that, and that I have been through myself, is like sometimes you want to be happier, you want to be more satisfied, you want to be more something, and that is actually what drives you away from being that.
Oh yeah.
Like, that is the craziest thing to me. You stop and be like, oh, I'm not happy enough, and instead you can be just like, okay, even just here, my therapist was like, sometimes I be having this 3 days in a row, and I'm like, damn, like I feel like a little bit upset. I don't really like respond to people and all that. And he's like, do you sleep well? Do you eat well? Do you do exercise? And I'm like, actually, no. And he's like, you're not like going insane. You're not like, most of the time it goes down to your habits, like taking care of yourself, taking care of so many things take effort.
Yeah.
But it's worth it, It's worth it. It's not really the end of anything. With a good philosophy and a good self-love, a good energy you put out, and you get back to yourself, you can create a lot of things. I think being a creative, at least for me, comes within a lot of this things.
Yeah, and I think to what I took from what you just said, or one of the things, is that you have to maintain yourself the way you'd maintain anything else, the same way that maybe you want to get back to practicing piano or whatever, that you have to put that kind of time into taking care of yourself. Like, you're the engine that makes all of this. And so if you want the engine to be running good, you got to maintain it, and I think we all, of course, need that too.
Of course. Like, it's funny because like I said a lot of like good points of everything, but I still gotta get back to gym since December, because I've been sick like for 2 weeks in January, and I still gotta get back to it. So there's so many.
It's always a process, right? I mean, it's never perfect. You're never 100%, but I think it's paying attention to it and being invested in taking care of yourself. that's the whole thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to nail it every single day, but as long as, like you said, it's a routine, it's just something that you kind of do along with everything else. I think that's the most important part. I mean, it makes me kind of, as we're like wrapping it up a little, makes me want to ask you, with all of this we've been talking about, like taking care of yourself and having fun, and you're 24 going on 25. You've been doing this a long time, but then you're still young. There's so much potential for what you could be doing. You have a long life ahead of you as a person, as a creative. Is there anything else you're excited about, or maybe something you haven't gotten to do yet with your project? Like, is there anything you're really looking forward to or excited about or having fun with right now?
Laughing because I have I have my notes in my phone with all the things that I would love to do in the future when the time is right. And man, I've been ticking some of them off. That's a great feeling. One of my biggest dreams, is having a GTA radio or a real life radio show. I don't know when, but eventually, so even if it's not that, but something where my creative output can create something like that, I would be super satisfied with. Or another idea that I had is like playing intimate shows, secret shows, and you just gotta, do the RSVP thing, just in the area, you get a message or an email and it'd be like, show here, 100 people maximum, no phones allowed, no anything allowed. And we just be there like 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. So something like that. Like there's so many ideas that I want to make in the future. But it's cool to be doing something step by step. And eventually, just having them in the back of my mind, you're set up, like as I said before, setting yourself up to a creative path, and knowing that it takes sacrifices and lots of hard work can actually take you somewhere.
Yeah, it's inspiring, man. Yeah, just to even trace your own path, kind of like what you were saying before, is when you were able to look back and just be like, yeah, it's been a wild ride. It's going to keep being a wild ride, right? And there's some excitement to that too.
Well, yeah, of course. Again, this interview made me stop and actually look back to a lot of things. So it's always fun to be like, I haven't get to go through what I said for my past EPs. I don't even know if I'll say something for this EP because, in all honesty, it's something that is so instinctive in a way that I'm like, it's funny. When I was brainstorming with my managers, I'm like, now I think it's time to do something that is just a collection of songs that I like. Nothing crazy. It still makes kind of sense, and it will make sense. There's gonna be something more, so it will make more sense later. Of course, lots of stuff, lots of things, but doing one step at a time without even going mad about, still I haven't done this yet. I haven't played a show yet. There's so many things that as a creative, so many people get stuck, and it's a shame. Many people get stuck and be like, oh, it's so boring to promote music, to do stuff like that. I spend time on socials, of course, but at the same time, though, I think I tailored this project to really fit doing what I want to do. It's easy to self-promote. It's easy to present myself. Even just with a mask, I made it playful. I made it a funny game for me to be like, let's pop up in public with this,
Yeah. No, it's great.
Something
man.
that as a producer, I would love to even tell the people, make it fun for yourself. Otherwise, it's got to be a shame to make it a slump for you to be creative. It's obviously not always funny to see that people who are better at communication and marketing and all that maybe go places before you. It's a little bit of how the game is, but has it really been different back in the day? I think of Daft Punk and I'm like, people are like, oh, they're the greatest dance act ever. And I'm like, not only that, they're like probably the most insane marketing thing that ever happened. And what really like I take with me in my heart is like they made it fun for themselves. They made it like, you know what? Don't really want to talk that much. We don't want to peer that much. Let's make it fun. Let's make it crazy. Let's make it, I don't know. Let's make it next level. And that's, I don't know. I take a lot from that philosophy. Like, I think some people can be like, oh, your music sounds like this, like that. So the more attentive people would say that my music sounds a little bit like Discovery, and that's a little bit there. I can say that I take a lot of inspiration from that record, especially with this music of this current EP. Lots of the inspiration, even like sample work, drum work. I don't know if you listen to my DJ sets, I always throw one or two tracks from Discovery in. They're like, I don't know, they're timeless songs.
They really are, man. They really are. And I think this is the last thing I'll say about it. I think part of that is all the things you were talking about, the sampling that they're doing, the way that they're doing it. They're sampling stuff from different eras, from things that were recorded with like older methods, all that kind of stuff. And it makes the music that they put out less anchored to a specific time, right? Because it's combining all these different eras in one piece of music. And I think that's kind of where your music sits too, is that, it has this sort of quality where maybe it was made today or maybe it was made 20 years ago. And that's sort of the fun of it, right?
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I mean, it's also like reflects me as a listener, probably. If I would go through my Spotify likes, that shit is completely like crazy. Like there's not even something. You can have like 3 or 4 songs that maybe make sense, and then boom, something from the Beatles or something from again. I decided to listen to Block Party like 2 months ago, and for me that was a whole like week, and I was like, Block Party, My Bloody Valentine. Also, like I was like really going in with that emotional rock, even like shoegaze sometimes. I don't really like to listen in depth to a lot of stuff lately, but I like to really go where my mind goes. Like I think you can say that I don't plan stuff out, even like in anything that I do. It's something that makes it difficult for me to get habits, but I enjoy it at least. I enjoy it.
There you go, man. At the end of the day, that's what it is, man. At the end of the day, whatever it is, you got to enjoy it and just see how far you can take it. Like whether it's, diving into someone's catalog, embracing a feeling, something in your own music, whatever it is, like, that's what I'm getting out of this. Is like, don't overthink it. Just whatever feels right in that moment, push that feeling and see how far you can take it.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great, dude. I got to wrap it up in a second, but is there anything we haven't talked about? Anything else you want to get out there before we log off?
I would shout out my EP that is when this will be out.
It's out.
My EP, if everything goes well, it's been just released. Like it should be out. It should be out from like a couple of days ago. I don't know. Like I'll ask the me from the future. So
No, I think it came out when people hear this. It came out like the week before.
Okay.
Yeah.
So last week my EP came out, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you didn't know about it, you can go listen to it. If you want to go through my SoundCloud, there's like much more music. If you have the time to go through, or like go to my website, I have a Discord community. I have with lots of very, very cool people. Like, I don't know, if you don't know me and you want to get to know me, you can literally click whatever link and it can literally get you whatever you want. And there's so many things. if you know me, shout out, you listen to good music. Shout out your taste. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, the new EP is great, man, and it's always fun to see what you're working on and what you're going to do next. So, thank you for doing this, man. I really enjoyed talking with you.
I enjoyed it a lot. Again, this kind of made me go secret places in my mind where I was like, oh shit, I didn't really say that. I did really do that, you know, especially talking about my past work. So many things. Yeah. I love doing.
No, it was fun, man. I had a great time, and yeah, come back anytime you want to do it again, man. We can definitely do a part 2 sometime.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Peace.